Brian was out in Los Angeles, and he said, we're having a screening of Phantom this week. You got to come out here. The excitement is amazing. We went to a screening on the lot, and there was a reception afterwards. I was talking to a young woman. She was Marsha Lucas, and she said, oh, you're the editor? Come, George wants to meet you. So she grabs me by the hand. She pulls me through the crowd of people. Anyway, he said, I really liked your work. I said, well, that's nice. Thank you very much. And that was that. Brian and George had become friends because they had worked at Warner Brothers in 1971 at the same time, and they were the only directors on the lot who had beards. When they were casting Carrie and Star Wars, they realized they were looking for the same age actors. So they decided to have their casting calls together. And during one of these sessions, Brian called me and he said, listen, George wants to talk to you. I really like your work and I'd love to work with you someday. I have an editor I've already hired for Star Wars, but I'm going to do another picture after that. I'd love to have you work on that. I said, thanks. And I went home and I said to Jane, I said, boy, I really wish I was working on Star Wars. I mean, that sounds really exciting. I don't know what it is, but I know it's science fiction and I think George is great. So anyway, I went on and I did Carrie. George went off and shot Star Wars. On his way back from England, he stopped in New York. By that time, Brian and I had a cut of Carrie and we showed it to George and Marsha. Now, George had had a bad time in England with his editor there, and the editor who put together the first cut was let go at the end of principal photography. George was very troubled by the shape that the picture was in, and he came through New York. We showed him Carrie, and then a few weeks later I got a call from Marsha saying, can you come help us out on Star Wars? I think we worked separately for a while. I was given the last third of Luke's final trench run. Marsha and I and George spent about 3 or 4 days until we finally locked the sequence. I never saw the picture while I was working on it. I would say, hey, George, I'd like to sit down and run the whole picture. He said, no, we don't have time. Just take the next reel. So every reel was a surprise to me. When I finished the reel, I'd grab a new reel to cut. I'd watch it, and I'd go, wow, you know. The use of wipes in Star Wars made sense because the film itself was sort of a throwback to a Saturday afternoon serial. So stylistically, it made sense. It's a way of introducing motion into an otherwise static transition. I mentioned it to George, and he said, yeah, but they should all be soft-edged. Kershner was a real character. He looked at a sequence I had cut once of Han Solo goes out in the snowstorm to rescue Luke. Angle after angle of Han dragging Luke in the snow, and the snow's blowing, and he's pulling him up a hill, and Kirsch looks at it, and he turns to me, and he holds up one finger, and he says, physical difficulty is boring. And I thought, you know, he's right. We just cut it all down, and it worked much better. I don't think there's any way anyone working on Star Wars could have known or predicted what became of it. The fact that it's now so significant, even 35 years later, I don't know that of other films that have had such an impact on the culture. The most rewarding experience I've ever had would be Star Wars, where I won the Academy Award. I've been dining out on it ever since. It sort of came to me early in my career. I was 31 years old. It was an extraordinary stroke of luck to have that come along at that point in my life.